All right, here we are. Good morning, everybody. For most, I know Peter Lowe's over in NZ, but we are here. We break 418, another 26 League Heroes combo break with this one featuring a 26 League Heroes case, a 26 League Heroes hobby box, 4 26 League Heroes starter packs, and 3 26 League Heroes blaster boxes. Our team list for this one: Jeff Warnes with the Broncos, Raiders, Gareth Lawson, Bulldogs, Kyle Hunt, Sharks, Scott Crimo, Dolphins, Sarah Parmenter, Titans, Josh Piper, Manly, Wayne Speck, Storm, Billy Murray, Knights, Ben Condon, Cowboys, Greg King, Eels, go Carlin, Panthers, Peter Lowe, Rabbitohs, Greg King, Dragons, Darin, Mcdermid, Roosters, Dean Mich, Warriors, Naytan, Midgley, Tigers, Lee Marschall. We have everything set up here, ready to go. Let me bring up the chat and the team list. We'll just refresh the chat. Alright. Now, I hope everyone, first off, has their entry into the Pick the Score giveaway for Friday night's game, where hopefully we get to watch Alex Johnston take out the record. And you have your tips in for round 2. $125 in gift cards up for grabs for round 2 this week. That's pretty big. So let's see how we go. Don't forget, if no one gets the score for round 2, it will jackpot to $100 for round 3. So I don't know if I want to see someone get it or if I want to see it jackpot. Let's see how we go. Remember, you must have made a purchase in 2026 to be a part of that one, and it's only in the Facebook group. So yeah, all right, let's get into it, guys. We're going to do our blaster boxes. Oh, scissors, Dad? Sorry? Yep. So, oh, thank you. I've also left the knife out in the garage. I've got another one, don't worry, I wasn't talking to you. Thank you. Alright, here we go. We're going to open all 3 blaster boxes. We will get the packets out. And while we do that, have you seen the new breaks we've listed coming soon? What is it? I've got it here. We've got a case, 2 hobby boxes, and 5 starter packs. Now they are coming soon. They are pick your team. You can add them to your wish list so you get a notification once they're in stock. But we're waiting to at least sell 419 and hopefully 420 before we list them. 419's only got 2 spots left plus the spot raz. So if we can get all that done today, there's only a couple of spots gone in the spot raz, so we need a few people to jump in on that one and get it done. But yeah, if we can get those 3 done today, then we can break that one tomorrow. That's the plan. That's the hope. Good morning, Jeff. So to all our Knights and Dragons fans, there's a spot available for tomorrow's break. And anyone that would like a chance at hitting Tigers in that one, the spot race. I'm having a shocker this morning, guys. Alright, that's them. We will open them at the end, but let's get these ones cracked and find out the bonus cards. First up, James Tedesco in the Roosters for the Bang, and Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Yay, man of the week, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. What a record to be chasing and breaking. Stood for so long now. Casey McLean for the Panthers. So many big names saying how hard it would be not to be storming the field, but at the same time, respecting the moment. Katoni Staggs. And last but not least, Tamale for the Raiders. Alright, let's get into these ones. And last one. If you've watched one of these ones now, you know I'm pretty paranoid about this, so I'm just... As much as I think they're the best thing ever, as in starter packs needed these, I am petrified of using scissors. Alright, scissors done. Mitchell Moses, league heads for the Eels. Hudson Young for the Raiders. Jared Reid is a champion. You watch him, he's got it down to a fine art. Scott Drinkwater, league heads for the Cowboys. Imagine me doing a whole case or majority of a case. Oh, Brian Kelly for the Titans. That would be no. Alright. Game breakers, Carlin Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Latu Fainu for Tigers. Die cut David Clemmer for the Dragons. Morning, Lee. Hopefully, mate. Luminous Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Not going to lie, Lee took the last spot at the last minute to get this one done today. So, cheers, Lee. Thank you. Game breakers, Beau Fermor for the Titans. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Eliza Katoa in the die cut for Storm. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. You would have noticed a lot of the posts and things like that are now in my name. We were having issues with the page editing posts. Some posts and not others, and it was, yeah, so I've gone back to posting as myself. So if you want to follow me or add me as a friend, you're more than welcome. League heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels, and hopefully that way you can get a notification when we post up in the group. Sebastian Chris Luminous for the Raiders. We haven't really had any issues with Facebook for a while now, so hopefully we'll go back to normal soon. League heads, Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Hammer for the Dolphins. Great, thanks mate. Great news on my blaster lockers. They are on the move. Oh, awesome, Lee. It's about time, but yes. Xavier Coates for the Luminous. Hopefully worth the wait in the end. Alright, we're up to the packets out of our last starter packet. League heads, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Alright, lucky last for the starter packs. And we've got Gladiators, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos, number 572. Luminous Tonto Koala for Manly. Alright, first packet in our blaster boxes now. Game breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. To make my life easier, we're going to flip that pile. Die cut Lecker for the Warriors. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. League heads, Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. League heads, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous, Jason Taumalolo for the Cowboys. Oh, we got a predictor. Dally M. Definitely save that one for the end. So just remember, guys, the first one is from the Blasters. Alex Twal, Luminous for the Tigers. This is still from the first Blaster box. And we've got an Isaiah Yeo in the Gladiators for Panthers, 425. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. League heads, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Latu Fainu for the Tigers. Game breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Ezra Mam, Luminous for the Broncos. League heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Game breakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Upside down, Luminous, Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Mawaki Fodawaka for the Titans. Luminous, Emma Veron for the Sharks. Die cut, Jason Taumalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Game breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Has everyone seen the new NRL ad with Teddy now opening the packet? League heads, Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Triumph, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Trent LaRoe for Storm. League heads, Greg Marschall for Knights. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Bang, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous, Fanua Pole for Tigers. We've got 2 packets left in our second blaster box. League heads, Valentine Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous for Storm. League heads, Game Breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Let's see if we can improve on the one Dally M. Die cut Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. I say that, but we also hit a Gladiators in that same box. So let's see if our third box has anything for us. Oh, look at that. We've got a Mercury. Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. 152. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. League heads, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Payne Huss for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Harry Grant for the Storm. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Bang, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Tolator Koala for Manly. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Reece Walsh for Broncos. Die cut Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lawson Albert Jones for the Warriors. 3 packets left out of our blasters boxes. Game Breakers White for the Roosters. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Alright, lucky last. League head Spencer Linu for the Roosters. And Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Alright, let's tidy these up in the box that I prepared earlier. Alright. And get this case open. Lee finally got an update for his order for his blaster lockers, and that he's supposed to get them tomorrow. Wow. Okay. Alright, last two guys. Let's go. We're already starting with the one Dally M predictor out of our blaster boxes. Remembering, we did also get some other numbered hits in amongst there. It just wasn't any of our case hits, they were box hits. So we're not off to a bad start. Let's see if we can continue. Game breakers, Naytan Maynard for the Dragons. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Die cut, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for Cowboys. League heads, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Keezy Apps for Tigers. Game breakers, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Die cut Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. League heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Oh, what about that new Parmenter ad? My partner sent that one to me this morning. Bang, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. And we are only a few members away in our Facebook group from another milestone giveaway. Oh, predictor. Dally M. Luminous Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Triumph Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Bang, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Dry Grey for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Reed Marnie for Cowboys. League Heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Die cut, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. League Heads, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. Game Breakers, Isaiah Yongi for the Eels. Luminous, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. League Heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Die cut, Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Big Tino for the Titans. Bang, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous, Kale Iro for the Sharks. League Heads, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous, Jason Saab for Manly. Gladiators, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Number 115. Luminous, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Mercury, Tommy Turbo for Manly, 157. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. Game Breakers, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys. League Heads, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Bang Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Game Breakers Tui Kamika for Storm. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. League Heads Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Game Breakers Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Bang Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Isaac Tago for the Panthers. League Heads Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Triumph in the team for Bulldogs. Luminous for Addo Carr in the Eels. 2 packets left in our first box. Game Breakers Dylan Lucas for Knights. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. League Heads Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Alright, box number 2. League Heads Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Bang Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Game Breakers Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Triumph Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Ben Trbojevic for Manly. League Heads Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Die cut Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. League Heads Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Die cut Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Bang Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Game Breakers Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Die cut Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous Isaiah Papalihi for Panthers. League Heads Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous Jacob Carraz for Bulldogs. League Heads Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for Storm. Game Breakers Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Bang Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. League Heads Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for the Tigers. Game Breakers Nathan Cleary for the Panthers. Luminous Connolly Lumi for the Dolphins. Die cut Dallin Mateen Zalesniak for the Warriors. Luminous Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. Game Breakers Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Alex Seifert for the Tigers. League Heads Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Bang Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Ali Leitua for the Warriors. Game Breakers Jareen Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. League Heads Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Mercury Ray Stone for the Dolphins, 134. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. League Heads Moses Leotta for Panthers. Luminous Harry Grant for Storm. Bang Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Renato Militalo for Sharks. Die cut Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. League Heads Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Triumph Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. League Heads Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Game Breakers Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Gladiators Alex Twile for the Tigers. Number 223. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. League Heads Conley Lumilu for the Dolphins. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. Bang Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous Brian Kelly for Titans. Game Breakers Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. And that is box number 2. Game breakers, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Bailey Haywood, luminous for the Bulldogs. Triumph in the team for Roosters. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Mercury White for the Roosters. Number 113. Luminous Jalen de Groot for Titans. Game breakers, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. And our instant win, Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Luminous Greg Marschall for the Knights. Red Triumph, Sanua Pagruva for the Tigers. Luminous Kuli Kefu for Dolphins. League heads, Mawaki Fodawaka for Titans. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Bang Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. League heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Carl Lawson for the Cowboys. Bang Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Game breakers, Alex Twal for the Tigers. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. League heads, Harry Grant for the Storm. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Die cut KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Zach Lomax for the Eels. League heads, Asaya Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Bang, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Die cut, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for Raiders. Gladiators, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers, number 473. Luminous, Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, White for the Roosters. Luminous, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. League Heads, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous, Georgia Hale for the Titans. Game Breakers, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Bang, Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Ruben Garrick for Manly. League Heads, Greg Marshew for the Knights. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Game Breakers, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Bang, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Loco Tonga for the Dragons. League Heads, Joash for Eels. Luke Brooks, Luminous for Manly. League Heads, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for Raiders. Game Breakers, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Bang, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. League Heads, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. Die cut Alex Twile for the Tigers. Luminous Latu Fainu for the Tigers. League heads Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League heads Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Mich Kenny for the Panthers. Die cut Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Box number 3 done and dusted. Here we go, box number 4. Die cut Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Harry Grant for Storm. Game breakers Billy Walters for the Broncos. Luminous Mulatalo for the Sharks. Triumph Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. League heads Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Luminous Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Game breakers Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. League heads Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Latu Fainu for Tigers. Die cut Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League heads Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Game breakers Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Oh, Clive Churchill predictor. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. League heads Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Game breakers Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Bang Sanoa Taruva for the Tigers. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. League heads Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Game breakers Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Mercury Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors, number 448. Luminous Cassie Hiku for the Eels. League heads Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Marky Mark for the Roosters. League heads Alex 12 for the Tigers. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Bang Greg Marshew for the Knights. Luminous Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. League heads Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators Moses Sulai for the Dragons, 127. Luminous Ali for the Warriors. Game breakers Sophie Holliman for the Raiders. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Bang Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Triumph, Brian Top for Panthers. Luminous, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. League heads, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Game breakers, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous, Isaiah Papali'i for Panthers. League heads, Braden Trindle for Sharks. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Bang, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Game breakers, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous, Luke Brooks for Manly. Die cut, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. League heads, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Bang, Roger Tulvasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous, Georgia Hale for Titans. Game breakers, Tyron Wishart for Storm. Luminous, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Jesse Ramian, die cut for the Sharks. Luminous, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. League heads, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous, Mich Kenny for Panthers. Bang, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for Dolphins. And that is box number 4 done and dusted. Alright, box number 5. Here we come. Game breakers, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. League heads, Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Bang Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Carl Lawson for the Cowboys. League heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Bang Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Triumph Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Savala for the Roosters. League heads, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous for the Storm. Bang Tyrant Wisher for Storm. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Not much, Turkey's Nest. What's happening, mate? Die cut Sanua Taruba for Tigers. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. You know, just busting a few packs like we do here. Die cut Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous Cameron McInnes for Sharks. Game Breakers, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. Yes, please. Gladiators, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys, number 403. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. League heads, Jake Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous AJ Brimson for Titans. Die cut Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous Marata McClaw for Warriors. Game Breakers, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. What's your personal preference? Newer gen or older gen cards? Look, I mean, there's different series over the years that have inserts that stand out. I wouldn't say it's newer gen or older gen. Yeah. League heads, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Samula Fainu, Luminous for the Tigers. Red Triumph in the team for Warriors. Luminous Ray Stone for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Philip Sami for the Titans. Game Breakers, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for Broncos. League Heads, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Dane Gagai for Knights. Bang, Philip Sami for the Titans. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Cheers. Bang, Jason Taumalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Jacob Carraz for Bulldogs. Luminous Zach Lomax for Eels. Game Breakers, Jason Taumalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Bang, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. League Heads, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Die cut Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League Heads, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Game Breakers, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous and Jamie Humphreys for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous Billy Walters for the Broncos. Die cut Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Luminous Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. League Heads Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Greg Marschall for the Knights. And lucky last for box number 5. Mercury Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs, number 255. Luminous Puli Kepu for the Dolphins. And that's the box done and dusted. Alright, before we get into box number 6, I am going to have some of this coffee. League Heads Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. Die cut Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. League Heads Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Bang Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Gladiators Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs, number 45. Luminous Lachlan Ilias for Dragons. League Heads Chance Nicole Clockstad for the Warriors. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League Heads Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Bang Tom Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Jareem Buller for Tigers. League Heads Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Oh, Daly M. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Game Breakers Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Bang Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Triumph and Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. League Heads Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Game Breakers Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Luminous Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Die-cut Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Luminous Kurt Capewell for Warriors. League Heads Jake Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Bang Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Stefano Kamanu for Storm. Game Breakers Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. League Heads Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous Beau Fermor for the Titans. Die-cut Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. League Heads Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alex Twal for the Tigers. Triumph Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Tyron Wishart for Storm. League heads, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Bo Fermor for Titans. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Game breakers, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Billy Smith for the Roosters. Mercury Hudson Young for the Raiders, number 330. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Bang Chans Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Lawson Albert Jones for the Warriors. League heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Game breakers, Josh Papali'i for the Eels. Luminous Tolator Koala for Manly. Alright, 4 packets left for box number 6. League heads, Reece Walsh for Broncos. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Die cut Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. Game breakers, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Bang Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sam Verrills for the Titans. Alright, box number 6 done and dusted. Let's keep it going. Game breakers, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Bang KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Triumph Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. League Heads James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Reed Marnie for Cowboys. Game Breakers Ruben Cotter for Cowboys. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Gold Triumph number 17. Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Bang Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League Heads Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Mercury Latu Fanu for the Tigers, number 329. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. Game Breakers Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous Max Platt for Dolphins. Die cut Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. League Heads Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. Bang Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Game Breakers Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. League Heads Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks. Gladiators Dominic Young for the Knights, number 137. Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. League heads, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous, Sean Russell for the Eels. Game breakers, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous, Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. League heads, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Triumph for the team in Eels. Luminous, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Bang, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. League head, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Isaac Tago for the Panthers. Had a piece of foil sitting on my nose up there and I could feel it and it was annoying me. Had to go and I could see it in the very corner of my eye. Game breakers, Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous, Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Die cut, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang, Lecker for the Warriors. Luminous, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. League heads, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Game breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. League heads, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Bang, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. League heads, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Amoli Olaka-Atu, Luminous for Manly. League game breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Die cut Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Mawaki Fodawaika for Titans. League heads Carlin Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Ali Briganshaw for the Broncos. Die cut Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Addo Kaya for the Eels. And last packet for box number 7. League heads Molly Olika R2 for Manly. And Luminous Robert Toya for Roosters. Alright. Box number 8. Finish the coffee. Bang Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. League heads James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. Triumph Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Game Breakers Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous Sam Verrills for the Titans. Bang Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. Game Breakers Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Triumph Dane Gagai for the Knights. Luminous Tolator Kuwala for Manly. League heads Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Bang Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. League heads Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Yep, Daily M Predictor. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League Heads Xavier Coates for the Storm. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Mercury Luca Moretti for the Eels, number 328. Luminous Felice Kafusi for the Dolphins. Game Breakers Dane Gagai for the Knights. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. League Heads Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Lachlan Elias for Dragons. Bang Nico Hines for the Sharks. Billy Smith Luminous for the Roosters. League Heads Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Die cut Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Lation Albert Jones for the Warriors. Gladiators Braden Trindle for the Sharks, 156. Luminous White for the Roosters. League Heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jack Ostock for Dolphins. Bang Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Game Breakers Chance Nicole Clockstad for the Warriors. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Die cut Riley Smith for the Eels. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Game Breakers Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. League Heads Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Game breakers. Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Latrell Mitchell, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Excuse me. League heads, Mich Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Don't forget to get your tips in and entry into Pick the Score giveaway for round 2, guys. League heads, Ben Hunt for Broncos. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Die cut Loco Honga for the Dragons. Luminous Bo Fermor for the Titans. Bang Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. League heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alex 12 for the Tigers. Fourth last packet in box number 8. Game breakers, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Tyron Wishart for Storm. League heads, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Die cut Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. And last pack for the box. Game breakers, Luke Brooks for Manly and Luminous Roger Tuivasa Sheck for Warriors. Alright. Box number 9. Game breakers, Abby Church for the Eels. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Gladiators, Jack Williams for the Eels, number 313. Luminous Dream Buller for the Tigers. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Jerome Luai for Tigers. Die cut, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Luminous Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Bang Episode Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. League Heads Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Die cut Reese Welsh for the Broncos. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. League Heads Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. League Heads Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Game Breakers Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Die cut Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. League Heads Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Bang Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Spencer Lenu for Roosters. Game Breakers Ali for the Warriors. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Bang Val Holmes for Dragons. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Game Breakers Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Bradman Best League Heads for the Knights. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Halfway through box number 9. Red Triumph, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. League Heads John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Anessa Biddle for the Sharks. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Bang Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Episode Coruscant for the Tigers. Die cut Philip Semi for the Titans. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Tryout for the team in Cowboys. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. League Heads Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Dylan Brown for Knights. Mercury Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs, number 224. Luminous Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Die cut Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. League Heads Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Isaiah Youngie for the Eels. Game Breakers Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League Head Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Luminous Matt Burton for Bulldogs. He's noisy today, isn't he? Bang, Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Game Breakers Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. League Heads Zach Lomax for the Eels. Jesse Colhoun, Luminous for the Sharks. Game Breakers Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. League heads, Regan Campbell-Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Campbell-Graham for the Rabbitohs. And that's the end of box number 9. Alright, box number 10. Here we come. Die cut Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Game Breakers Jalen de Groot for Titans. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Bang Campbell-Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. League heads Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. Die cut Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. League heads Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Bang Ezra Mam for the Broncos. G'day Panthers edits. Luke Metcalf, Luminous for the Warriors. Game Breakers Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for Tigers. League heads Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Connolly Lumilu for the Dolphins. Mercury Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Number 264. Luminous Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. League heads Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. Game Breakers Patricia for the Warriors. Luminous Max Plath for the Dolphins. Red Triumph Paps for Storm. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Die cut, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, Campbell Gillard for the Titans. League heads, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jackson Perdue for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. League heads, Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Game breakers, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Yes, not bad at all, we believe. Sam Walker, Luminous for the Roosters. League heads, Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Die cut, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. League heads, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. Bang, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Game breakers, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Triumph for the team. Luminous, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Game breakers, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Casey McLean for the Panthers. Did you get any Panthers try-up? I'm not sure about in the break, but we have them listed on the website. Maybe not the red try-ups? Yeah. League heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous, Chance Nico Coxstad for the Warriors. Bang, Jackson Perdue for the Cowboys. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Bang, Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Gladiators, Tui Kamikamika for the Storm, number 437. Luminous, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Die cut, Griffin Neem for the Cowboys. Luminous, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Game breakers, Terrell May for the Tigers. Lunas, Ben Trbojevic for Manly. Bang, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Game breakers, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, William Kennedy for the Sharks. League heads, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. And last packet for box number 10. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous, Sean Russell for the Eels. Alright, let's push these out of the way. And just a reminder, we've got 2 boxes left out of the case and 1 hobby. Alright. Box number 11. League heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Die cut, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Game breakers, Jaden Campbell for Titans. Luminous, Saya Yongi for the Eels. Die cut, Bronson Sherry for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. And Predictor. League heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Bang, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Lem Martin for Panthers. Gladiators, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Number 481. Scott Drinkwater in the Luminous for Cowboys. League heads, Terrell May for Tigers. Luminous, Luca Moretti for Eels. Game breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Bang, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Game breakers, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Mercury, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks, number 428. Hudson Young, Luminous for the Raiders. League heads, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous, Leka Halasima for Warriors. Bang, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. League heads, Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Triumph, Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous, Big Tino for the Titans. League heads, Elafiana Khan Piera for Titans. Kale Hero, Luminous for Sharks. Game breakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. League heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jason Saab for Manly. Die cut, Teague Wilton for the Sharks. Luminous, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. League heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Game breakers, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Abby Church for the Eels. Game breakers, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. And Hammer Luminous for the Dolphins. Bang, Philip Semi for Titans. Cohen Hess, Luminous for Cowboys. League heads, Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Die cut, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Game breakers, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Bang, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. League heads, Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Triumph in the team for Dragons. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Cody Nikarima, League heads for the Dolphins. Luminous, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. 2 packets left in the box. Game breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Isaiah Yo for the Panthers. And last packet for the box. Don't mind me. Dylan Brown, Luminous for the Knights. And bang, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. That's box number 11. We got our last box of the case. League heads, Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Die cut Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Game breakers AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. League heads Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for Eels. Bang, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for Cowboys. League heads Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Die cut Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Bang Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. League heads Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Get open. Bang Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Game breakers Tyron Wishart, Tegan Demick for the Bulldogs. Sorry, I just looked from behind, my bad. Dylan Walker, Luminous for the Eels. League heads Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Bang for Storm. Luminous Brian To'o for Panthers. Die cuts James Schiller for the Knights. Luminous Luke Lawley for the Tigers. Game breakers Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. League heads Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Hugo Savala for Roosters. Game breakers Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous for the Storm. Die cut Charlie Staines for the Tigers. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. League heads Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Game breakers Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. Game breakers John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Bang Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League heads Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Tui Kamikamika for Storm. Mercury Tui Kamikamika for Storm, number 267. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Red Triumph in the team for Sharks. Sean Kepi, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators, Mr. White for the Roosters, number 454. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. League heads Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Bang Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous Samula Fainu for the Tigers. League heads Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Red Triumph Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League Heads for Storm. Luminous Philip Semi for Titans. We got, this is our 5th last packet in the last box of the case. Game Breakers, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Patrick Carrigan, Luminous for the Broncos. Die cut, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. Game Breakers, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. And 2 packets to go. League Heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Game Breakers, Kale Hero for the Sharks and Luminous AJ Brimson for Titans. Alright, well that finishes off the case, guys. All we have left to go is our hobby box. So, let's get into it. What's that in there? The seals. Last box of the break, the hobby box. First up, Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs, number 701. Luminous Zach Lomax, number 546 for the Eels. Etched Hammer for the Dolphins. Oh, number 1. There we go. Who's got Dolphins? Sarah Parmenter. Congratulations. Nice one. Yep. Straight to the pool room. Luminous Naytan Cleary for the Panthers, number 647. Nope, don't need one of them. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers, number 262. Etched Aaron Clark for the Warriors, number 127. Luminous Cameron McInnes for Sharks, 298. Luminous Trent Leroux, number 304 for Storm. Gold die cut Lehe Hopawate for Manly, number 77. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly, number 555. And Mercury Sterling, number 16. Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans, number 168. Gold die cut Luca Moretti for the Eels, 143. Luminous Murata Nakor for the Warriors, number 302. Jamie Humphreys in the Luminous, number 486. Gold Gladiators, Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers, number 82. Luminous Billy Walters for Broncos, 148. Gold die cut Philip Sammy for the Titans, number 66. Oh, excuse me. Luminous Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders, 594. Playmakers, Hugo Savala for the Roosters, number 10. Nice, another nice low one. Not as good as the number 1, but still, number 10. Out of 110. Not as high as some of the others either. Luminous Greg Marschall for the Knights, number 412. Etched Bronson Sherry for the Bulldogs, number 4. We are pulling some low ones in this one. Alright, what have we got? 5 packets left. We have a predictor. Luminous Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins, number 21. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters, number 215. And gold die cut Kale Hero for the Sharks, number 58. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors, number 505. Gladiators Stefano Utokumanu for Storm, number 88. Alright, 2 packets to go, guys. Let's see how we go. Luminous Carl Lawson for the Cowboys, 677. Gold die cut Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs, number 100. And lucky last packet for the break. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons, number 20. Not bad. And a gold die cut Lindsay Collins for the Roosters, number 62. And there we go. All right. Well, now here we are at the end with 8 hits. And our first one coming out of the blaster boxes, number 84, Dally M Predictor, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Next up, Dally M Predictor number 166, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Remembering these are all gold predictors, guys. The only platinum is the one out of the hobby. And next up is the instant win. Oh, nice. I actually didn't see the team until now, so congratulations, Mr. Lee. Nice. And Clive Churchill Predictor, number 61 for the Knights. And moving along, 174, Dally M Predictor, Lowe for the Tigers. Tigers going off at the end. And next up, Dally M Predictor Wildcard, number 77 for the Panthers. We got Peter Lowe with the Panthers. All right, the last out of our retail case, guys. Here we go. What do we got? Premiership Predictor, number 180 for the Sharks, Scott Crimo. All right, and lucky last of the break, Dally M Predictor Platinum number 13 for the Bulldogs, Matty Burton. Right, guys, that is it for this one. Remember to stay tuned to our Facebook page and group for the pictures, don't forget to go and check out break 419. Before we went live, we had Knights and Dragons left in the break, and the spot raz for West Tigers. And if you haven't already, get your entry in for the pick the score giveaway, and get your tips in for the tipping comp. A lot going on, guys, I know, so please don't forget. Don't want you to miss out. And thank you, Jeff. Welcome, mate, and I will see you